After 2 decades as their personal ATM, I refused my parents' shocking $60,000 anniversary demand. Their scheme for revenge unraveled, revealing a family broken by money. The phone call ended, but the echo of my mother's entitled voice lingered, twisting in my gut. What I didn't know then was that her outrageous demand for a $60,000 anniversary gift wasn't just a request. It was the final straw that would shatter my entire world. Asterisk, asterisk. You make the most money, Alara. It's only fair that you handle this yourself. Her words, delivered with that familiar edge of entitlement, felt like a punch. I was sitting in my home office in Portland, Oregon, staring at an email she'd sent just an hour earlier. The subject line, our 40th anniversary dream celebration. Inside was a detailed list, a $20,000 Mediterranean cruise, a luxury sedan worth $30,000, and a $10,000 emerald bracelet she'd been eyeing for months. $60,000. Total. My name's Alara. I'm 42, and for the past 20 years, I've poured my life into building Bright Veil Mining, a successful consulting firm. I've worked harder than anyone knows for everything I have, the comfortable home, the financial security, the respect in my industry. But to my family, my success has always meant one thing. I'm the bank. Mom, that's a lot of money, I said, trying to keep my voice level, trying not to sound like the exasperated daughter I instantly felt like. Have you talked to Leo or Chloe about chipping in? Why would we do that? Her voice snapped, sharp as broken glass. Your brother just bought a house, and your sister has 3 kids to raise. They're struggling. You're the one with a high-paying job and no children to support. This shouldn't be a burden for you. I closed my eyes, taking a slow, shaky breath. This wasn't new. For years, my parents had treated me like their personal ATM. New roof? Call Alara. Kitchen remodel? Alara will cover it. Extravagant vacation? Alara has the money. And every time I hesitated, every time I dared to suggest my siblings contribute, I got the same lecture. I was selfish. I didn't understand real struggle. I should be grateful they raised me. I'm not saying I won't help, I said carefully, choosing my words like stepping on eggshells. I'm just asking if Leo and Chloe could contribute something. Even a small amount. Absolutely not. She cut me off. I already told you they can't afford it. Besides, this is our 40th anniversary. We deserve something special after all these years. Don't you think we've earned it? There it was. The guilt trip. The emotional manipulation that had worked on me for decades. I'll think about it. I finally conceded, my voice barely a whisper. Think about it? Her voice rose, laced with disbelief. Alara, the cruise leaves in 3 months. We need those reservations confirmed now. And the car dealership is holding that sedan for only another week. I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. I said I'll think about it, Mom. I need to go. I hung up before she could argue further, my hands trembling slightly as I set the phone down. I stared at the email again, reading through the detailed descriptions of each gift. My mother had even included links, the exact cruise itinerary, the specific car model with all its luxury upgrades, photos of the emerald bracelet from 3 different angles. This wasn't a request. This was a demand. I thought about my siblings. Leo, 39, had just purchased a beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with his wife. They drove matching SUVs and took their kids to Disneyland every year. Chloe, 36, lived in a spacious home with a pool, sent her 3 children to private school, and posted photos on social media of their family trips to the beach every summer. Neither of them was struggling. Not really. But they were smart. They'd learned to plead poverty whenever my parents needed something, and my parents always believed them. Or maybe they just didn't care, knowing I'd cave eventually. I pulled up my banking app. I had the money. That was the frustrating part. I could afford to give my parents this anniversary gift without seriously impacting my finances. But the principle of it made my stomach churn. Why was I always the one expected to shoulder the entire burden? Why did my success mean I owed them everything while my siblings owed nothing? My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Asterisk, I've already told everyone at the country club about the cruise and the car. Please don't embarrass us by making us take back those plans. Asterisk, something shifted inside me then. A small crack in the foundation of guilt and obligation that had held me in place for so long. She had already told people. She had already made promises using my money without even waiting for my agreement. I set my phone face down and turned back to my computer. I had work to do, decisions to make, but that crack kept growing. And with it came a question I had never allowed myself to ask before. What would happen if I just said no? Growing up, I had always been the responsible one. The oldest. The one who got good grades, never caused trouble, made my parents proud. Leo and Chloe were different. Leo was charming and funny, always getting away with things because he could make people laugh. Chloe was the baby, delicate and sweet, the one everyone wanted to protect. And I was Alara. Reliable, capable, boring Alara. I graduated top of my class, got a full scholarship to college, and worked part-time throughout my university years to avoid asking my parents for money. I saw how they struggled financially back then, how they argued about bills, cut corners. I didn't want to be a burden. After graduation, I landed a job as a junior analyst. The work was grueling, but I loved it. I spent 5 years learning the industry, making connections, saving every penny. When I was 27, I took the leap and started Bright Veil mining. It was terrifying and exhilarating. There were moments I thought I would fail. But I didn't. I built something real, something valuable. Within 10 years, my company was consulting for major operations across the Pacific Northwest. I had a team of 15 employees, contracts worth millions, and a reputation for excellence. My parents were proud in their way. They loved to brag about me at parties, tell their friends about their successful daughter. But that pride came with expectations. It started small, a few hundred here and there for unexpected expenses. Then it grew. A new car for my mother when hers broke down. A home renovation my father insisted they needed. A loan to help Leo start his own business, which I never saw repaid. Each time, they assured me it was temporary. Each time, I told myself it was my duty to help. And each time, it got a little easier for them to ask, and a little harder for me to say no. My siblings never contributed financially. They showed up for family dinners and holidays, played with the grandkids, and let my parents dote on them. Somehow that was enough. They were the fun ones. The family people. The ones who brought joy. I was the one who brought money. A few days after the phone call, I drove to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. It was a tradition I rarely missed, though I dreaded it more often than not. The house was in a nice suburban neighborhood, a spacious 2-story home with a well-maintained lawn. My father had retired 3 years ago. My mother had never worked outside the home. They lived comfortably, not lavishly, but comfortably. Leo and Chloe were already there, their families spilling into the backyard. I could hear children laughing, adults chatting over drinks. I parked my car and sat for a moment, gathering my courage. When I walked inside, my mother greeted me with a tight smile. "There you are. I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up." Traffic was bad. I lied. She led me into the kitchen where she was finishing up dinner. "Your father and I have been talking," she said, her tone unnervingly casual. "We think it would be nice if you could give us the cruise and the car as an early anniversary gift. That way, we can start planning the trip and pick up the car before the sale ends." I set my purse down on the counter. "I haven't decided yet, Mom." Her smile faltered. "What's there to decide?" I explained the situation. "Your brother and sister can't help, so it's up to you." "Have you actually asked them?" I challenged. "I told you they're struggling financially. There's no point in asking them to contribute when they can't." "Leo just bought a house," I pointed out. "And Chloe's kids go to private school. They don't seem to be struggling that much." My mother's expression hardened. "Don't you dare judge your siblings, Alara. They have families to support, real responsibilities. You have no idea what that's like." The words stung, just like they were meant to. I'd heard variations of this speech my entire life. Because I had chosen not to get married, not to have children, my life was somehow less valuable. My responsibilities were less real. I have responsibilities too, I said quietly. I run a business. I have employees who depend on me. That's different.
And you know it, she snapped.
Your father and I sacrificed so much to raise you children. The least you can do is show some gratitude now that you're successful. I wanted to argue. I wanted to point out all the times I had helped them, all the money I had given without complaint, all the ways I had put their needs before my own. But I knew it wouldn't matter. In their eyes, I would never give enough. I need to think about it, I repeated. My mother turned away from me, her shoulders stiff with disapproval.
Fine.
But don't take too long. We're not getting any younger, Alara. I spent the rest of the evening in the backyard, watching my nieces and nephews play, listening to Leo and Chloe talk about their lives. Neither of them mentioned the anniversary gift. Neither of them seemed concerned about it at all. Because they knew I would handle it. I always did. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. It was my father this time, which was unusual. He rarely called me directly. Alara, we need to talk, he said, his voice stern. What's wrong? Your mother is very upset. She's been crying all morning because you still haven't committed to the anniversary gifts. Do you have any idea how much stress you're causing her? A flare of anger ignited in me. I'm causing her stress? Yes, you are. This should be a happy time for us, celebrating 40 years of marriage. But instead, your mother is worried sick that you're going to embarrass us in front of our friends. Dad, I never said I wouldn't help. I just asked if Leo and Chloe could contribute. We've been through this, he interrupted. They can't afford it. You can. It's as simple as that. $60,000. I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. That's not a small amount even for me. You make well over $200,000 a year, he shot back. Don't act like this is some huge sacrifice. Your mother and I gave you everything when you were growing up. We put a roof over your head, food on the table, sent you to college. I had a full scholarship. I reminded him. That's beside the point. We supported you emotionally, and that's worth more than money. Now, we're asking for one thing to celebrate our milestone anniversary, and you're acting like we're asking you to rob a bank. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of guilt pressing down on me. This was how it always went. They asked for something unreasonable. I hesitated. And then they made me feel like a terrible daughter for not immediately complying. I'll transfer the money by the end of the week, I heard myself say. Thank you, my father said, his tone warming immediately. I knew you'd come through. You're a good daughter, Alara. Your mother will be so relieved. He hung up, and I sat there staring at my computer screen, feeling hollow. That evening, I met my best friend, Maya, for dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Maya and I had known each other since college, and she was one of the few people who knew the full extent of my family situation. You're not seriously going to give them all that money, are you? She asked after I told her about the conversation with my father. What choice do I have? You say no. That's the choice you have. I shook my head. You don't understand. They'll never forgive me. They'll tell everyone I'm selfish, that I abandoned them when they needed me most. Leo and Chloe will back them up, and I'll be the villain in every family story from now on. So what? Maya leaned forward, her eyes intense. Alara, they've been using you for years. They don't appreciate what you do for them. They just expect it. And the more you give, the more they'll demand. They're my parents. They're taking advantage of you. I knew she was right. Deep down, I had always known. But acknowledging it felt like admitting I had been a fool for all these years, that I had wasted decades trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. I just want them to be happy, I said quietly. What about your happiness? Maya asked. When do you get to matter? I didn't have an answer for that. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, my mind racing. I kept thinking about the conversation with my father, the way he had dismissed my concerns so easily, the way he had made me feel guilty for even hesitating. I thought about my mother's text, about how she had already told people about the gifts before I had agreed to pay for them. I thought about Leo and Chloe living their comfortable lives while I footed the bill for our parents' extravagances. I thought about all the times I had sacrificed my own wants and needs to make my family happy, and how little appreciation I had received in return. And then I thought about what Maya had said. When do you get to matter? I got out of bed and went to my home office. I pulled up the email from my mother again, reading through the detailed gift list. The cruise, the car, the bracelet. $60,000 worth of demands dressed up as requests. I opened my banking app and looked at the transfers I had made to my parents over the years. Tens of thousands of dollars given freely because I loved them, because I wanted to help, because I thought it was my responsibility as the successful daughter. How much had Leo contributed? How much had Chloe? I opened a new spreadsheet and started calculating. Every gift, every loan, every emergency payment I had covered. The numbers added up quickly, far beyond what I had realized. Over the past 10 years, I had given my parents more than $200,000. $200,000. I sat back in my chair, stunned. I had known it was a lot, but seeing it laid out in black and white made it real in a way it hadn't been before. And suddenly I was angry. Truly, deeply angry. Not just at my parents, but at myself. For being so willing to be used. For never standing up for myself. For letting them convince me that my worth was measured only by what I could provide. I looked at the email one more time. The cruise, the car, the bracelet. And then I started typing a reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My heart pounded. This was it. The moment where I either stood up for myself or fell back into the same pattern I had followed for 20 years. I began to type, "Dear Mom and Dad, I've given your anniversary gift request a lot of thought over the past few weeks. After reviewing my finances and considering everything carefully, I've decided that I won't be able to provide the gifts you've requested. I hope you understand, and I wish you a wonderful anniversary celebration. Love, Alara." My finger hovered over the send button. It was such a simple message, polite even, but I knew it would detonate like a bomb in my family. I took a deep breath and clicked send before I could change my mind. The response came within 10 minutes. My phone started ringing immediately. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. On the fourth call, I finally answered. "How dare you?" she hissed into the phone. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" "Mom, I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I just can't afford to spend $60,000 right now." "That's a lie, and you know it. You make plenty of money. You just don't want to help your own parents." "That's not true. I've helped you countless times over the years. I've given you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're supposed to be grateful?" she interrupted. "We're your parents, Alara. We raised you. You owe us." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I owe you. Yes, you owe us. We could have spent that money on ourselves, but we invested it in you. We gave you a good home, a good education. "I paid for my own education," I said, my voice shaking. "I worked 2 jobs through college to avoid asking you for money." "Well, we paid for everything before that. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise a child? And you were always such a demanding child, always needing new clothes and school supplies. And every child needs those things," I retorted, feeling tears sting my eyes. "That's what parents are supposed to provide." "Don't you lecture me about parenting," my mother snapped. "You've never had children. You have no idea what it takes. I know that children aren't supposed to spend their entire adult lives repaying their parents for being born." There was a long silence. When my mother spoke again, her voice was cold. "I see. So, this is how you really feel after everything we've done for you. This is the gratitude we get." "Mom, please. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just think $60,000 is too much to ask from one person. If Leo and Chloe could chip in, I already told you they can't afford it. Why do you keep bringing them up? Are you jealous of your siblings, Alara? Is that what this is about?" "No. I'm just asking for fairness." "Life isn't fair," my mother said sharply. "Some people have more, and some people have less. You have more, so you should help those who have less. That's what family does." "But I'm family too," I said quietly. "Doesn't anyone care about what I need?" What you need? She laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. You need nothing, Alara. You have a big house, a successful business, plenty of money in the bank. What could you possibly need? I wanted to tell her that I needed to feel valued for more than my bank account. I needed to feel like my sacrifices mattered. I needed to be treated with the same consideration and respect they gave my siblings. But I knew it wouldn't make a difference. I'm sorry you're disappointed, I said finally. But my answer is no. I hung up before she could respond. The phone rang again immediately. This time it was my father. I sent it to voicemail. Then Leo called, then Chloe, then my mother again. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence of my office, my hands trembling. I had done it. I had actually said no. The relief I felt was almost overwhelming, mixed with a deep sense of dread. I knew this wasn't over. My parents wouldn't accept my refusal quietly. They would push back, manipulate, guilt trip, and do whatever it took to get what they wanted. But for the first time in my life, I had drawn a line. The next morning, I woke up to find my email inbox flooded. My mother had sent 3 long emails detailing all the ways I was a disappointment, all the sacrifices she and my father had made for me, and how ungrateful and selfish I was being. My father had sent a shorter, but equally harsh message, questioning my character and values. But the message that hurt the most came from Chloe. Galera, I don't understand why you're doing this to Mom and Dad. They've always been so proud of you, and now you're breaking their hearts over money. I know you have your own life and your own expenses, but this is their 40th anniversary. Can't you put them first for once? I would help if I could, but you know how tight things are for us right now with the kids and everything. Please reconsider. They're getting older, and they won't be around forever. Do you really want to ruin this special milestone for them? I read the message 3 times, feeling anger build with each read. Chloe's kids went to a private school that cost $20,000 a year per child. She and her husband drove luxury SUVs and had just installed a new pool in their backyard. But somehow she couldn't contribute even $1,000 to our parents' anniversary gift. And Leo hadn't even bothered to message me. He had sent my mother a message instead, which she had forwarded to me. In it, he expressed his disappointment in me and assured my mother that he would help if he could, but his new house had stretched his budget to the limit. His new house had cost $450,000. I realized then that my family had created a system where I was the designated provider and my siblings were the designated recipients of sympathy and understanding. They had learned that if they claimed poverty loudly enough, they would be absolved of all responsibility. And I had enabled that system by always stepping up to fill the gap. Well, not anymore. 2 days after I sent my refusal email, my mother showed up at my office unannounced. My assistant buzzed me to let me know she was in the lobby, and I felt my stomach drop. I considered telling my assistant to send her away, but I knew that would only make things worse. Send her up, I said reluctantly. My mother swept into my office 5 minutes later, dressed in an expensive outfit I recognized because I had paid for it 6 months ago. Her face was set in an expression of wounded dignity. I cannot believe you would refuse to see your own mother, she said, even though I hadn't refused anything. I'm working, Mom. I have meetings all afternoon. This won't take long. I just need you to understand what you're doing to us. She sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. Your father and I have told all our friends about the cruise and the car. We've already made plans with other couples to dine together during the trip. Do you have any idea how humiliating it would be to cancel now? You made those plans before I agreed to pay for anything, I pointed out. We assumed you would help us. You always have before. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I've helped too much. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I took a deep breath. It means that I've given you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And I've never asked for anything in return. Not gratitude, not recognition, just basic respect for my time and my finances. But instead, you take my help for granted and get angry when I set boundaries. Boundaries? She said the word like it was obscene. Is that what this is? Some kind of therapy speak you picked up from one of your self-help books? No, it's common sense. I work hard for my money, and I have the right to decide how to spend it. Of course you do, my mother said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. And we're just asking you to spend it on your parents, who gave you life and raised you to be the successful woman you are today. You didn't make me successful. I did that myself. The words came out harsher than I intended, but they were true. My parents had provided the basics, but they hadn't supported my business dreams. They had thought I was foolish for starting my own company, told me I should get a stable job with benefits instead. When I succeeded, despite their doubts, they were happy to bask in reflected glory, but they had never acknowledged the risks I took or the work I put in. My mother's face flushed red. How dare you speak to me that way? I came here to have a reasonable conversation, and you're attacking me. I'm not attacking you. I'm just being honest. Honest. She stood up abruptly. You want honesty? Fine. Your father and I are deeply disappointed in you. We thought we raised you to value family, but it turns out we were wrong. You care more about money than you do about your own parents' happiness. That's not fair. You know it's not fair, she interrupted. Having a daughter who is everything and refuses to share with the people who made her who she is. Your brother and sister would help if they could. But you, with all your money and success, you can help. And you're choosing not to. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. She turned and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she looked back at me. When your father and I are gone, you're going to regret this. You're going to remember this moment and realize you chose money over family. I hope it's worth it. She left, and I sat there, feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My hands were shaking. Tears built up behind my eyes. But underneath the hurt and guilt, there was also anger. How dare she twist this around to make me the villain? How dare she act like I was the one being unreasonable? I pulled up my phone and sent a text to Maya. Asterisk, need to talk. Free tonight? Asterisk, she responded immediately. Asterisk, always. Wine bar at 7. Asterisk, that evening, I told Maya everything about my mother's visit, about the guilt trip, about the way she had made me feel like a terrible daughter for setting a simple boundary. This is emotional abuse, Maya said bluntly. You know that, right? It's not abuse. She's just upset. Ilara, listen to yourself. She came to your workplace to berate you for not giving her $60,000. She's trying to manipulate you into compliance by making you feel guilty for taking care of yourself. That's textbook manipulation. I swirled the wine in my glass, not meeting her eyes. Maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe I should just give them the money and move on. And then what? Next year, they'll want something else, and the year after that. And you'll keep giving because you're terrified of being seen as the bad daughter. When does it end? I don't know, I admitted. It ends when you decide it ends, Maya said firmly. You've already taken the hardest step by saying no. Don't give up now. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I had her conviction. The guilt was eating at me, whispering that maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I was a bad daughter after all. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Asterisk, Mom told me about your conversation today. I can't believe you made her cry. What's wrong with you? Asterisk, I showed the text to Maya, who rolled her eyes. Of course, they're bringing in reinforcements. That's how manipulative families work. They gang up on the person who's trying to set boundaries. Should I respond? Only if you want to engage in more drama. Personally, I'd ignore it. I put my phone face down on the table and tried to focus on my wine, but even as I sat there with my best friend, I felt the weight of my family's disapproval pressing down on me like a physical thing. The next morning, I received an email from my father. It was longer than his usual messages, and as I read it, my heart sank. He detailed every sacrifice they had made for me as a child, every dollar spent, every time they put my needs before their own, every sacrifice of their comfort for my benefit. He calculated that they had spent approximately $200,000 raising me to adulthood and suggested that the $60,000 they were asking for now was actually quite reasonable considering their investment in me. He ended the email with, "We're not asking for your money, Ilara. We're asking for what we're owed." The email from my father sat in my inbox like a poison. I read it over and over until the words blurred together. They thought I owed them. Not just gratitude or love, but actual financial compensation for the crime of being born and raised. I thought about responding, about trying to explain why this was wrong. But I knew it wouldn't matter. In their minds, they had created a ledger where every meal they fed me, every piece of clothing they bought me, every roof over my head was a debt I needed to repay with interest. Instead of responding, I did something I had never done before. I opened my financial records and started documenting everything. Every transfer to my parents, every gift, every loan that was never repaid, every emergency expense I had covered. I created a detailed spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and descriptions. The final number was $237,000. I had given them more than they claimed to have spent raising me. I stared at the spreadsheet for a long time, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't just about the anniversary gifts anymore. This was about a pattern of behavior that had defined my relationship with my family for my entire adult life. I picked up my phone and called my financial advisor, Isabel. I need to make some changes to my financial planning, I told her. What kind of changes? I want to set up a trust for myself, something that's protected, that can't be accessed by anyone else. And I want to review all my automatic transfers and subscriptions to see if there's anything going to family members. There was a pause. Is everything all right? It will be, I said. I'm just taking control of my finances. Over the next week, I worked with Isabel to restructure my financial life. I canceled the credit card I had given my mother for emergencies that she used for shopping. I stopped the automatic monthly transfers I had been sending to help with their expenses. I locked down my accounts and made sure no one but me had access to my money. It felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. My mother noticed immediately. 2 days after I canceled the credit card, she called me in a panic. My card was declined at the store, she said, her voice shrill. I was in the middle of checking out, and the cashier told me there was a problem. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. I canceled the card, I said calmly. You what? Why would you do that? Because it was my card and I no longer want to provide it. But I need that card for household expenses. You and Dad have your own income. You can use your own cards for household expenses. Alara, this is ridiculous. You're punishing us because you're angry about the anniversary gifts. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just setting boundaries. Boundaries? She spat the word. You and your boundaries. Do you know what I think? I think you've become selfish and cold. Success has changed you, and not for the better. Maybe you're right, I said. Or maybe I'm finally learning to value myself. This conversation is over, she said. But mark my words, Alara. You're going to regret this. Family is everything, and you're throwing yours away over money. She hung up, and I sat there, feeling the familiar guilt try to creep back in. But this time, I pushed it away. I wasn't throwing away my family. They were the ones who had reduced our relationship to financial transactions. That evening, I received a group text from Leo. It was sent to me, Chloe, and our parents. Asterisk, I think we should have a family meeting to discuss what's been going on. This situation with Alara is tearing us apart, and we need to clear the air. Can everyone come to Mom and Dad's house this Sunday? Asterisk, I stared at the text, knowing this was a trap. They wanted to get me in a room where they could all gang up on me, where I would be outnumbered and overwhelmed. In the past, I would have gone. I would have walked into that ambush because I was too afraid of being seen as difficult or uncooperative. But not this time. I typed out a response. Asterisk, I don't think a group meeting would be productive right now. If anyone wants to talk to me individually, I'm available. Asterisk, the responses came quickly. Chloe. Asterisk, that's so typical of you, Alara. You can't even be bothered to show up for your own family. Asterisk, Leo. Asterisk, we're trying to fix this, and you're making it harder. Just come to the meeting. Asterisk, my father. Asterisk, your mother is very upset. The least you can do is show up and explain yourself. Asterisk, I turned off my phone and went for a walk. It was a clear evening in Portland, and I walked for hours through my neighborhood, thinking about everything that had happened. I thought about the years I had spent trying to earn my family's love through generosity. I thought about all the times I had sacrificed my own needs and wants to make them happy. And I thought about what Maya had asked me. When do you get to matter? When I got home, I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing. I wrote an email to my parents, Leo and Chloe. I chose my words carefully, without anger or accusation, just simple facts. Asterisk, I've spent the past week reviewing my finances, and I've realized that over the past 10 years, I've given Mom and Dad $237,000. This doesn't include the money I've loaned to Leo or the various gifts and expenses I've covered for everyone over the years. I've never asked for this money back, and I've never expected repayment. I gave it freely because I love you and wanted to help. Asterisk, but I've come to understand that my generosity has been taken for granted and even turned into an expectation. The request for $60,000 in anniversary gifts was the moment I realized this pattern needed to change. Not because I don't love Mom and Dad, and not because I don't value family, but because a healthy relationship can't be based solely on financial transactions. Asterisk, I'm setting boundaries moving forward. I will no longer be providing regular financial support, emergency loans, or expensive gifts. This isn't a punishment. It's a necessary change for my own well-being. I hope that in time we can rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect rather than financial dependence. But that will require all of us to make changes, not just me. Asterisk, love, Alara. I attached the spreadsheet showing all my financial contributions over the years and hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I closed my laptop, poured myself a glass of wine, and waited for the explosion I knew was coming. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in years, free. The explosion came within an hour. My mother called first, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I didn't catch every word, but the general theme was clear. I was ungrateful, cruel, and had humiliated them by putting their financial dependence on me in writing. She demanded I delete the email immediately and apologize for my disrespect. I told her no and hung up. My father called next, his voice tight with rage. How dare you throw those numbers in our faces like we're beggars? We're your parents, not some charity case you can itemize and judge. I wasn't judging, I said calmly. I was being honest about our financial relationship. Those numbers are facts, not accusations. Facts, he sputtered. You made us look like parasites. I didn't make you look like anything. I just showed what's been happening. You know what? Don't bother coming to the anniversary party. You're not welcome. There isn't going to be an anniversary party, I reminded him. Not the one you planned anyway. You can't afford the cruise or the car without my money. Remember? The silence on the other end was profound. Then he said very quietly, You're going to regret this, Alara. Mark my words. He hung up. Leo sent a long text calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to make myself look like a martyr. Chloe sent an even longer message saying I had always been jealous of them and was using money as a weapon to hurt our parents. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I poured myself another glass of wine and sat on my balcony looking out over the city lights of Portland. My phone kept buzzing with incoming messages, but I ignored them. For the first time in my adult life, I had told my family the complete truth, and while it hurt, it also felt right. The next morning, I woke up to an unexpected email from Chloe. The subject line read, We need to talk privately. I opened it cautiously. Alara, I know you're angry right now, and maybe you have reasons to be, but I think there's been a misunderstanding about my financial situation. Can we meet for coffee this week? Just the two of us. I want to explain some things. I stared at the email suspiciously. This was unlike Chloe. She was usually happy to go along with whatever our parents said, never questioning, never pushing back. But there was something in the tone of this message that seemed genuine. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small coffee shop near her house 2 days later. Chloe arrived looking tired, without her usual careful makeup and styled hair. She ordered a latte and sat down across from me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Thanks for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. She nodded. I deserve that. I know I haven't been fair to you over the years. I waited, not sure where this was going. The thing is, Chloe continued, I didn't realize how much money you'd been giving Mom and Dad. I knew you helped them sometimes, but I thought it was just a few thousand here and there. When I saw that spreadsheet, I was shocked. You really didn't know?
No.
Mom always made it sound like you were happy to help, like it wasn't a big deal for you. She said you had so much money that you barely noticed when you gave them some. I noticed, I said quietly. Chloe wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I also didn't know they'd been asking you for $60,000 for their anniversary. Mom told me they were planning something special, but she never mentioned how much it cost or that you were expected to pay for all of it. What did you think? That they suddenly came into money? Honestly, I try not to think about their finances at all. It's easier that way. She looked down at her cup. I know that makes me sound terrible, but dealing with Mom and Dad is exhausting. They always want something, always have some crisis or complaint. I learned a long time ago that the best way to handle them is to just stay out of it. By letting me handle everything instead. Yes, she admitted. And I'm sorry for that. It wasn't fair to you. I studied my sister's face, looking for signs of manipulation, but all I saw was genuine discomfort and maybe a little shame. Why are you telling me this now? Because after you sent that email, Mom called me and asked if I could loan them $10,000 to help cover some of the anniversary costs. She said they'd already told their friends about the cruise and the car, and they needed to save face somehow. What did you tell her? I told her I couldn't afford it, which is true, by the way. We're not as well off as you think. We look good on the outside, but we're drowning in debt. The house, the cars, the private school. It's all financed to the limit. We have almost nothing in savings. I felt a strange mixture of vindication and pity. Why did you let Mom think you were struggling when she asked you to contribute to the anniversary gift? Because I am struggling. Maybe not in the way she thought, but we genuinely don't have spare money lying around. But the thing is, she never actually asked me to contribute. She just told me you were handling it. And I was relieved because I didn't have to deal with the guilt of saying no. Chloe's admission hung in the air between us. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry at her for benefiting from my generosity while doing nothing to stop our parents' demands. But another part of me recognized that she had been caught in the same system I had, just playing a different role. Mom called me again yesterday, Chloe continued. She was furious. She said you'd betrayed the family and that we all needed to band together to make you see reason. She wanted me to convince you to change your mind about the money and I told her I couldn't do that. I told her I thought you had valid points and that maybe it was time for everyone to be more realistic about their finances. I raised my eyebrows. How did that go over? About as well as you'd expect. She hung up on me. Then she called back an hour later and told me I was a disappointment just like you. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for my sister. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was actually kind of liberating. I've spent my whole life trying to be the good daughter, the one who never caused problems. But, you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm tired of watching you get treated like an ATM while the rest of us get a free pass. What about Leo? Does he feel the same way? Chloe shook her head. Leo is different. He genuinely believes Mom and Dad deserve whatever we can give them. He doesn't see anything wrong with the way they've treated you. When I tried to talk to him about it, he said you were being dramatic and that you should be grateful to have the opportunity to help our parents in their old age. They're 62, I pointed out. They're not exactly elderly. I know. But Leo has always seen things the way Mom and Dad want him to see them. He's not going to change. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. Then Chloe said, "There's something else you should know." Oh. After you sent that email with the spreadsheet, Mom and Dad started calling all their friends and relatives, telling them their side of the story. They're painting you as this selfish, money-hungry daughter who abandoned them in their time of need. My stomach tightened. What are they saying exactly? That they asked you for a small contribution to their anniversary celebration and you refused, and then sent them a nasty email listing every penny you'd ever given them, like you were trying to shame them. They're saying you value money more than family and that they don't know where they went wrong raising you. The betrayal stung, even though I had expected something like this. Did you correct them? I tried. I told Aunt Carol the truth about the $60,000, and she was shocked. She had no idea they were asking for that much. She thought it was maybe a few hundred for a dinner or something. But I don't know if anyone else believes me. Mom and Dad have been working the phones pretty hard. I thought about all those relatives, people I had known my whole life, hearing my parents' twisted version of events and thinking I was some kind of monster. It made me angry, but it also made me realize something important. I didn't actually care what they thought. Let them talk, I said. Anyone who knows me will know the truth. And anyone who doesn't know me well enough to question my parents' story isn't worth worrying about. Chloe looked at me with something like admiration. I wish I had your strength. You do have it, I told her. You just proved it by calling them out on their behavior. Yeah, and now they're not speaking to me either. How's that working out for you? She thought about it for a moment, then smiled slightly. Honestly, it's kind of peaceful. We talked for another hour, and by the end of it, I felt like I was seeing my sister clearly for the first time in years. She wasn't my enemy. She had just been another person caught up in our family's toxic dynamics, trying to survive the best way she knew how. When we parted ways, she hugged me tightly. I'm sorry for everything, she said. I should have stood up for you a long time ago. You're standing up now, I said. That's what matters. Over the next few weeks, the fallout continued. My parents stopped speaking to me entirely, which was actually a relief. Leo sent me a few more angry messages before apparently giving up. Some extended family members reached out with questions, and I calmly explained my side of the story to those who asked. But the most surprising development came from an unexpected source. 3 weeks after I sent the email with the spreadsheet, I received a message from my father's sister, Aunt Carol. She lived across the country in Boston, and I hadn't spoken to her in years. Alara, I heard about what's been happening with your parents. I want you to know that I believe you, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Your parents have always had unrealistic expectations, and I'm glad someone finally called them out on it. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. The message brought tears to my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone from my family to validate my decision until that moment. 2 months after I refused to fund my parents' anniversary extravaganza, I heard through Chloe that they had scaled back their plans dramatically. Instead of a Mediterranean cruise and a luxury car, they had a modest dinner party at a local restaurant with a few close friends. My mother was apparently furious about the downgrade and spent the entire evening complaining to anyone who would listen about her ungrateful daughter. I didn't attend, obviously. I sent a card with a $100 gift certificate to a nice restaurant, which my mother later told Chloe was insulting. I was fine with that. What I wasn't fine with was the discovery I made 3 months later. I was having lunch with Maya when my phone buzzed with an alert from my credit monitoring service. Someone had tried to open a credit card in my name. The application had been denied due to a fraud alert I had set up years ago, but the attempt had been made. That's weird, I said, showing Maya the notification. Did you apply for a new card? No, and the billing address listed isn't mine. I called the credit card company immediately and got more details. The billing address was my parent house. Someone had used my social security number and personal information to try to open a credit card with a $10,000 limit. My parents had tried to commit identity theft. I felt physically sick. I had expected manipulation, guilt trips, and social pressure. I had even expected them to badmouth me to relatives. But I never thought they would actually commit a crime. You need to file a police report, Maya said firmly when I told her what happened. They're my parents. They're criminals. They tried to steal your identity to get money they're not entitled to. That's fraud, Alara. I knew she was right. But the thought of calling the police on my own parents made me feel ill. Still, I couldn't just ignore this. If I let it slide, what would they try next? I called Chloe instead. Did you know Mom and Dad tried to open a credit card in my name? I asked when she answered. There was a long pause.
What?
I explained what had happened. Chloe was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Chloe? I knew they were desperate for money, she said finally. Mom kept saying they needed to find a way to salvage their anniversary plans, that they couldn't let their friends think they were broke. But I never thought they would do something like this. I need you to tell me the truth. Did they ask you for help with this?
No.
God, no. Alara, I would never. I know we haven't always been close, but I would never help them commit fraud against you. I believed her. I'm going to file a police report. I think you should, Chloe said quietly. This crosses a line. I filed the report that afternoon. The police took my statement and said they would investigate. 2 days later, 2 officers showed up at my parents' house to question them. According to Chloe, who heard about it from our mother, my parents claimed it was all a misunderstanding. They said they thought they had my permission to use my information because family helps family, and they were sure I wouldn't mind. The excuse was absurd, but the police couldn't prove intent to commit fraud without more evidence. So, they issued a warning and closed the case. But the damage was done. Word spread quickly through our extended family about what my parents had attempted. Aunt Carol called me, outraged on my behalf. Several cousins reached out to express their shock and support. Even some of my parents' friends quietly distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the revelation that my parents had tried to commit identity theft against their own daughter. My mother tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, claiming I had overreacted and weaponized the law against my own family. But this time, fewer people believed her. The pattern was becoming too clear to ignore. Leo surprisingly finally showed a crack in his unwavering support of our parents. He called me one evening, his voice strained. I can't believe they did that, he said. The credit card thing. That was wrong. Yes, it was. I still think you should have helped them with the anniversary gifts, he added quickly. But trying to open a card in your name without permission, that's different. It wasn't much of an olive branch, but it was more than I had expected from Leo. I appreciate you saying that, I told him. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I still think you're being too hard on them. I smiled despite myself. Noted. As the months passed, my life became quieter and infinitely more peaceful. Without the constant demands from my parents, I had more time and energy to focus on my business, my friendships, and myself. I started taking pottery classes on Saturday mornings. I traveled to Vancouver for a long weekend just because I wanted to. I bought myself a beautiful necklace I had been admiring for months without feeling guilty about the expense. I learned what it felt like to live for myself instead of for my family's approval. My parents never recovered their social standing or their sense of entitlement. Their 40th anniversary came and went with a modest celebration that satisfied no one, least of all my mother, who spent years bitterly recounting how her ungrateful daughter had ruined what should have been the event of a lifetime. Leo eventually stopped defending them quite so vehemently after they asked him for a $30,000 loan to cover their mounting debts, a request he refused, suddenly understanding what I had endured for years. They tried to rebuild bridges with Chloe, but the relationship remained strained after she set her own boundaries and refused to become their new financial support. The attempted identity theft became family legend, whispered about at gatherings they rarely attended anymore. Their retirement was comfortable enough on their pensions, but the lavish lifestyle they had envisioned, funded by their children's success, never materialized. They blamed me until the end, but I had long stopped caring about their version of events. 5 years after that fateful anniversary email, I stood on my new deck overlooking the mountains outside Portland, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. My business was thriving, my friendships were genuine, and my life was entirely my own. I thought about the woman I had been, desperate for approval, willing to sacrifice everything for scraps of affection, believing her worth was measured in dollars given. That woman felt like a stranger now. I had learned the hardest lesson of my adult life, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. And as I sipped my coffee in the peaceful morning silence, I realized I wouldn't change a single thing about the path that brought me here. Even the pain, even the guilt, even the moments when I thought I might break. Because on the other side of that pain was freedom. And freedom, I had discovered, was worth every uncomfortable conversation, every burned bridge, every family gathering I would never attend. It was worth everything.